Endeavor is a game for 2 to 5 players, plays in about 45 minutes to an hour, and was designed by Carl DeVisser and Jarrett Gray, and put out by Z-Man Games in the US. To set up the game, give each player 4 cubes and a bunch of discs in their color, and a player board. They're going to put the 4 cubes at the 0 marks on each of these 4 meters on their board. Take the 8 small decks of cards, they've all got different backs, and order them so that the governor card or 0 card is on top, and then it descends down to 5 at the bottom of each of them. Then place them on the spot on the board that matches the symbol on the card, which also is the symbol on the back of the card. For instance, you take the lions and place them face up on the lion spot on the board. Take all the building tiles and arrange them in stacks of the same building and place them all next to the board. You'll notice each building tile has a brick level indicator in the corner. I recommend placing all the tiles with the same brick level near each other. Then take all the small circular chips and place them so that the white side is down and the picture is up on every little circle on the board, including the forts, the circular tracks leading up to the card piles, and all the connections in between the forts. Some people distribute all the chips face down first and then flip them up. I think that's kind of silly. As long as you don't assign the start player marker until after the chips are placed, then nobody's going to gain any advantage based on placement. And now you're ready to begin. Each turn basically goes down your player board. The first thing that happens is, beginning with the player with the start player marker, you choose a building equal to your brick level. So if your cube is on number 5 here, you've got a brick level of 3. So you choose a building of brick level 3 or lower and place it on your board. Notice there are only spaces for 7 buildings on your board, not counting the one everybody starts with that's printed on the board. That means there are only 7 rounds in the game. Once everybody has chosen a building equal to their respective brick levels, everybody gets new people equal to their culture level. So if you've got a culture level of 7, you're going to get 5 new people, which are these discs. When you get new people, they go into your harbor, and that means that you can use them. When they are not in your harbor, when they're off the board, they are not usable. Once everybody's got new people, you're going to pay people to come home off the buildings equal to your income level, which is these money bags. So if you've got a income level of 3, you can pay 2 people to come off of buildings and back to your harbor. And then in between the income level and this, which is politics, which is actually your hand size, there's a taking actions phase. That's the meat of the game. Most of the buildings have a little circle on them, which is an action space. Beginning with the start player and then proceeding clockwise around the table, you're going to take actions until you can't or don't want to take actions anymore. To take an action, you place one person on the spot on the building, and then you perform the action shown. The flag is the occupy action. It means that you take an additional person from your harbor and place it on a fort in an area you have access to. To begin the game, we only have access to this central area here, the Mediterranean. So you would place it on the fort, and you would claim the small chip that's there. The chip goes into your harbor, and you would move the appropriate meter up by 1. You can always recreate where your meters are supposed to be by the pieces of cardboard that are on your player board. Whether it's chips, cards, or buildings, if it has these little symbols on it, your meters increase by that amount. If you have to discard a card during the game, your meter will decrease by the amount of symbols lost from that card. The next action is the ship action. To take it, you place one person on the space, and then an additional person from your harbor on the last space of any shipping lane. For instance, I would take this one, the next person to go to this shipping lane would take this one, and so on. As soon as the last token is placed in a shipping lane, this area is unlocked for everybody who has shipped supplies there. The player who shipped the most becomes the new governor of this colony and gets the governor card for free. If there's a tie for most, whoever has the closest token amongst tied players to the cards gets the governor card. You can ship to a full track just to get presents there so that you can take actions there if you need to. When you take a governor card or any card, you place it on your player board into one of these slots. If you want, the first governor card you get can be placed in your free governor slot. However, at the end of the game, if there's no card here, you'll get 3 bonus points. That's what the little cross symbol is victory points. The next action is the draw action, which is this little crate here. It only takes one person. You place the guy there, and you draw a card from the top of a stack in an area where you have presence equal to or greater than the number on the card. Your presence in an area is how many people you have in that area, either in the shipping lane or occupying a fort. For instance, green has 3 presence right now. You can only take the top card at any given time, so right now, if anybody drew a card, it would have to be this one card. You can't go digging through the deck and choose whichever card you would like. When you take the card, it goes in one of your card slots, and you increase your appropriate meters. The next action is the attack action. It takes the most people to use. One person goes on the building, one of your people dies in the attack, and it just gets moved off of your board, and then the third person is placed on an already occupied fort, killing the person there. It should be noted that if you control both sides of a connection, which is this line in between 2 forts, you gain the chip on the connection. If later on somebody kills you off of those forts and claims the connection for themselves, you still get to keep the connection chip. The last action is the payment action. It's a money bag symbol because it's exactly like the money bags during the income phase. You place one person on the building, and you remove one of your other people from one of your buildings and place that person back in your harbor. People stay on buildings until they are removed, which means the building is occupied, it can't be used, and the person is occupied, he can't be used. They must be paid for their work before the building or the person can be used again. Some of the chips don't have symbols that match your meters. They have action symbols instead. That means that instead of placing a person on a building, you can discard this chip to take that action. So, for example here, you could discard this chip to either draw one card that you would normally be able to draw, or take a guy from your harbor and occupy one unoccupied fort in an area that you have access to. If there's a plus sign between 2 symbols rather than a slash, that means you can do both actions or either action. But if you do both actions, they must both occur in the same area. You cannot ship to India and then occupy the Caribbean. Once all players have taken all the actions they can, then everybody needs to discard down to their politics level, which is the shield. The card symbol shows how many cards you can hold in your hand, not counting your free governor slot, and in addition you can have one slavery card that does not count against your hand limit. The slavery cards are different from the other cards in a couple of important ways. First off, normally when you discard a card, because you have too many, it goes back to the stack it came from. Slavery cards instead get flipped over next to your board and are worth -1 point at the end of the game. That may not sound like much of a penalty, but the last card in the Mediterranean deck, which requires 5 presents in the Mediterranean to take, has the abolition of slavery on it, which forces all players to discard their slavery cards immediately, and no new slavery cards can be taken. Once you're done going through all the steps, the start player marker passes one player to the left, and you repeat them again. Build a building equal to your brick level, get dudes equal to your dude level, pay people to come home equal to your money bag level, take actions, and then discard down to your hand limit. At the end of the 7th turn, the game will end, and players count up their points. Add up the victory symbols on your board, your cards, and your buildings. Slide your meter markers down to the next lowest symbol that's shown, which means if you're on a 5 or 6, you'll always slide down to a 4, an 8 or 9 slides down to a 7, a 10 or greater stays where it's at. Then score a number of points equal to where your marker is. You'll score for each category this way. You'll notice that all the forts have at least 1 victory point on them. You'll score 1 victory point for each cross shown. If you control both sides of a connection at the end of the game, you'll score 1 victory point for the cross shown there. And you'll score 1 victory point for every 3 people you have left in your harbor at the end of the game. If you're scoring points this way, it probably means you did something wrong. Then the player with the highest total wins. I enjoy this game a lot. You're making constant, interesting decisions, and it plays very quickly, 45 minutes to an hour generally. The first turn of the 7 usually takes maybe 2 minutes to complete, everything included, beginning to finish. The later turns are of course longer, but it's still a fast game, and you are constantly making meaningful decisions. I feel that the game explains very cleanly, especially because of the way the player board is laid out, and feel that there's a good mix of strategy and tactics, as well as direct and indirect player interaction. I highly recommend this game.